This is Josh Garrett. Josh is a 15-year-old new-gen youth intake player whose career path is about to become an experiment. Thanks to a bit of trickery, Josh is a 200 PA new-gen who is about to tread 3 very different career journeys. Career path 1 will see Josh stay at Liverpool, where he was taken on during the youth intakes. He will spend the next 5 years forming a defensive partnership with Virgil Van Dijk and training at Liverpool's 5-star Axa Training facility. Career path 2 will see Josh leave Liverpool to move to Portsmouth in the Championship. He will form a defensive partnership with Regan Poole and develop his abilities training at Portsmouth 3.5-star rated Pompey Training Ground. Career path 3 will see Josh drop down to League 2 as he swaps his original club Liverpool for Barrow. There he'll form a partnership with Sam Barnes. He will train at the 1.5-star training facility that Barrow use 100 miles away in Moston, Manchester. In today's Football Manager 2024 experiment video, I'm going to track the progress of all 3 of the career paths that Josh is about to embark on. He will be locked in as a left-sided centre-back who will start every game that he is eligible for. Now, I get that might be a little bit unrealistic. Who in their right mind would start a 15-year-old in every single game they're eligible for? It would be insanity. But this is Football Manager. It's a game that turns us all a little bit insane, right? This experiment has been put together to see what happens when one player is exposed to 3 clubs with varying degrees of training facilities. Now, I get that there are other outside influencing factors that might change his development, but this is just a bit of fun. It's not a deadly serious experiment. It is just designed to see what happens with youth intake players. With that being said, if you enjoyed today's experiment video, please don't forget to hit the like button on the video and also subscribe to the channel. I am currently on the road to 10,000 subscribers and I'd love to hit that total before Football Manager 2025 is released in March of 2025. Right then, let's jump into the experiment and see what happened in the first season. To start this experiment off, we are going to go right back to the very beginning. This is Josh Garrett. Josh is a 15-year-old Welsh centre-back who came through the 2024 youth intake at Liverpool. Thanks to the OPZ Elite skin, we can see that Josh starts the game with a 36 current ability. As you'd have seen from the little intro there though, we have tweaked Josh to make sure that he has a potential ability of 200. We are then going to split his career into 3 different paths, all running concurrently side by side. He will spend 5 years at Liverpool, 5 years at Portsmouth and 5 years at Barrow to see if the teams that we have selected and the training facilities that we have selected will help or hinder his development. Now, I know there are other outside influences, but this is just a little test to see how this will go, and hopefully you'll find out some information about 5-star, 3.5-star and 1-star training facilities and how they help or hinder your players. The first version of Josh that we're going to look at is the one that stayed at Liverpool. In the first season, he would go on to be a 78 current ability player. That is an improvement of 42 points in the first season. Looking at his attributes, there would be green arrows in nearly every single attribute. In the first season at Liverpool, he would play 50 times. He would have a 6.60 average rating. Looking at his attributes, we can see via the progress of the graphs, he would have a major overall improvement in technical abilities, major overall improvement in mental abilities, and a major overall improvement in physical ability. Next up, we are checking in at Portsmouth, and this version of Josh Garrett has become an 84 current ability player, having an improvement of 48 points. Looking at his attributes, you can see there are green arrows pretty much everywhere, but there is one standout red arrow, and that is contributed by a sprained knee ligament injury that cost him 6 weeks of the season. But still, growing to 84 has surpassed the version that played at Liverpool. He would play 49 times in season 1, gaining a 6.59 average rating. If we look at his progress charts, he would have major overall improvement in technical abilities, major overall improvement in mental abilities, major overall improvement in physical ability. The last version of Josh to check in with is the one that plays for Barrow, and we can find him after the first season a 77 current ability player, and that puts him roughly on par with the version that plays for Liverpool. Looking at his attributes, there are green arrows pretty much everywhere once again, and he would go on to play 52 times in the first season, averaging a 6.66 average rating. Looking at his development graphs, we find major overall improvement in his technical abilities, major overall improvement in his mental abilities, major overall improvement in his physical abilities. In season number 2, the version of Josh that stayed at Liverpool would climb to a 102 current ability player. He would once again have massive improvements in terms of his attributes, and he would play 45 times across the season, including competitions such as the Premier League, the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, Community Shield, and he would get selected for the Under-21s European Championships. He would have a 6.74 average rating across the season. If we go into the development charts once again, we can see that he would once again have major overall improvement in his technical abilities, major overall improvement in his mental abilities, major overall improvement in his physical abilities. In season 2, the version of Josh that is at Portsmouth would go on to be a 97 current ability player, and that means he has now fallen behind the version that is at Liverpool. Look at his attributes, there is good progress. The one that makes me happiest is that bravery is now back up to 9. After he had that injury in season 1, he has now started to redevelop that attribute. Across the season, he would play 49 games. He would have an average rating of 6.57, and he would play in the Championship, the FA Cup, and the Carabao Cup. If we go to his development to look at the graphs, we can see major overall improvement in the technical abilities, major overall improvement in the mental abilities, major overall improvement in the physical abilities. The last version of Josh to look at for season number 2 is the one at Barrow. He's now a 98 current ability player, and he has progressed past the one at Portsmouth too. Looking at the attributes once again, there is major growth everywhere, and in this season he would play 56 times for Barrow, gaining a 6.71 average rating across the season, playing in League One, the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, and the English Football League trophy. Looking at his development graphs, we find he has major overall improvement in technical abilities, major overall improvement in his mental abilities, major overall improvement in his physical abilities. For season number 3, the Josh at Liverpool has taken a big step forward. He's now a 127 current ability player, moving 25 points forwards. Looking at his attributes, once again, he has taken a big step forwards in nearly every area of his game. And across this season, he would play 60 times for Liverpool, including games in the Champions League, Premier League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, and the Community Shield. He would get a 6.8 average rating across the season. When we look at his progress, this time around we can see he has had big jumps in terms of things like dribbling, marking and passing in the technicals, in the mentals, it's anticipation, concentration, positioning and vision that are getting big increases, and pretty much everything in the physicals is now taking big step forwards. Season 3 at Portsmouth would see Josh take a 20-point step forward, as he's now a 117 current ability player. He would also have big gains in most areas for his attributes. He would play 52 times for Portsmouth across the season, including games in the Championship, the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. He would average a 6.79 rating for the season. Looking at the development progress, again, major improvement in all 3 areas. In terms of his technicals, the biggest jump would be the 5 here for marking across all time. Anticipation, concentration, positioning in terms of the mentals, and in the physicals there are big jumps pretty much everywhere, but it's acceleration, pace, stamina and strength. On to season 4 now, and we really start to see Josh take big steps forward towards being that 200 PA wonder kid. In season 4, he would go on to be a 142 current ability player, again taking big leaps forward in terms of his attributes. Across the season, he would play 61 games. He would play in the Champions League, the Super Cup, the Premier League, the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, Community Shield, and even got a call up for Wales to play in the European Championships. He would have a 6.78 average rating across the season. Looking at the development then, the graphs are now all showing massive increases. In terms of the technicals, the 6 for the marking, 4 for dribbling, 4 for passing, 4 for tackling. In the mentals, he has gone up 9 points in anticipation and concentration, 6 in positioning and 7 in vision, and there are massive leaps everywhere in terms of his physicals. Next up in season 4, the version at Portsmouth would take a 12-point step forward as he becomes a 129 current ability player, again making progress in nearly every single attribute area. He would play 49 times across the season in the Championship, the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. He would get a 6.79 average rating. Looking then at the development graphs, once again we know he has major overall improvement in the 3 areas, and he would have the biggest gains of 6 for marking in the technicals. You have 8 for anticipation, 5 composure, 6 concentration, 5 decisions, 7 for positioning in the mentals, and there are big leaps in terms of the physicals. Bravery though is now stagnating. It is still at 9 despite it showing an up arrow. The final version of season number 4 is the one at Barrow. This version has taken 10 current ability points step forward. He's now 126 rated. Looking at his attributes, he has also taken big steps forward in all 3 areas. He would go on to play 49 times across the season, playing in the Championship, the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. He would have a 6.79 average rating across the season. We have a little look at his development graphs to see where his biggest gains are. Across all time, he would gain 6 for marking in the technicals, he would gain 8 for anticipation, 6 concentration, 5 decisions, 6 positioning and 5 for vision in terms of his mentals. And in the physicals, there are big jumps, including 2 6s for stamina and strength. We have now reached season number 5, and that means that all 3 Joshes have turned 20 years old and will have done 5 years at their clubs. Kicking off with the one at Liverpool, we can see he has now gone on to become a 154 current ability player, and that is pretty impressive considering we turned him up to a 200 potential ability player. There is probably still some development to come, but he has gained 118 current ability points. Looking at his attributes, we'll go into them a bit more in detail in just a second. But across the last season, he would play 56 times for club and country, including games in the Champions League, the Premier League, the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup and the Nations League. He would get a 6.85 average rating across his final season. And he would play 186 times for Liverpool across 5 seasons. Looking at his development then, we can see that across all time he has gone on to have major overall improvement in all 3 areas. His biggest gains in the technicals would be dribbling, it would be marking and passing. In the mentals, anticipation, concentration, off the ball positioning and his vision, and everywhere across his physicals he has improved significantly. If we go back to look at his profile, you can see that he has now gone on to fulfill our description of a wonder kid. Next up is the version of Josh that is at Portsmouth. In his 5 years at Portsmouth, he would go on to become a 141 current ability player. That means he would take 105 ability steps forwards since the start of the save. Looking at his attributes, once again, taking big steps everywhere, and we'll cover that in just a second. But across the final season, he would play 48 times for Portsmouth, playing in the Championship, the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. Across the 5 seasons, he would play 220 games for the first team. Looking at the development graph then to see how he compares to the one at Liverpool, he too has taken some massive steps forwards, and in terms of his technicals, the biggest gains would be in marking And in dribbling, in the mentals, it would be anticipation, concentration, decisions, positioning, and his vision. And in the physicals, he would take big steps forward pretty much everywhere, with stamina and strength being the standout too. If you remember, this is the version of the player that had a significant injury at the start of the save. It means that his bravery would only go up by a couple of points. It dropped to 7 and has risen back to 10. So after 5 seasons, he too would go on to fulfil the description of a wonder kid, not as strong as the one at Liverpool, but he has developed really well considering he's playing for Portsmouth, a step down, and in a poorer training facility. So after 5 seasons locked into their clubs, it would obviously follow the pattern that everybody would presume. The Liverpool version would end up being a 154 current ability player. The Portsmouth version would end up being a 141 current ability player and finishing 14 points behind. And the Barrow version would end on 131 current ability and only be 23 points behind the Liverpool version. Does this mean that a 3.5-star difference in facilities means only a 23-point gap if you're looking to develop wonder kids? It certainly shows the importance of Liverpool's 5-star training facility. There are probably other questions to come out of this test. Drop a comment below if you have any. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, this isn't a serious test. It was all done for a bit of fun.